Every night, 13-year-old Chinedu Okafor slept under the Third Mainland Bridge in Lagos, where the roar of traffic never truly stopped and the lagoon breeze carried both salt and sorrow. If you're new to this channel, just subscribe now, and say it in the comment section. But what he did with the little food he had would soon shake the entire state in ways no one could imagine. The bridge was a world of its own after sunset. The headlights of passing cars streaked across the darkness like restless fireflies. Hawkers packed up their wares. Danfo drivers shouted final destinations. And beneath the concrete giant that connected the island to the mainland, children like Chinedu folded flattened cartons into makeshift beds. Chinedu's spot was close to one of the massive pillars, where the cement was slightly warmer from the day's heat. He had chosen it carefully months ago. It gave him some protection from the wind and just enough shadow to avoid trouble from area boys who preyed on younger kids. He lay on his back, staring at the underbelly of the bridge. "Mama, I tried today," he whispered into the darkness. There was no answer, of course. But in his heart, he still spoke to her every night. Before the accident, life had been small but full. Their one-room apartment in Surulere had peeling paint and a leaking roof during rainy season, but it also had laughter. His father worked as a bus conductor. His mother sold fried plantain by the roadside. They weren't rich, but they were together. Then one night, a drunk driver ran a red light. Everything ended in a single scream of twisting metal. Relatives came, not with comfort, but with calculations. For a few weeks, he stayed with an uncle in age. Then the whispers began. School fees? Feeding. We are struggling ourselves. One evening, his uncle avoided his eyes. "Chinedu, you're a strong boy. You can manage. Lagos will teach you sense." That was how a 13-year-old became responsible for his own survival. Every morning now, Chinedu woke before dawn and crossed over to Balagan Market. The market was chaos wrapped in color. Traders shouted prices. Women argued over fabrics. The smell of spices, sweat, and roasted corn blended in the humid air. "Carry load. Carry load," he would call out, stretching his thin arms. Some days were good. He could earn 1,000 Nigerian nairas or even 1,500 Nigerian nairas if luck smiled. Other days, he returned to the bridge with barely 300 Nigerian nairas. Still, he never stole. Never begged aggressively. Never fought for territory. "Why you too gentle like this?" another street boy named Say once mocked him. "Lagos no be church." Chinedu had smiled faintly. "If I lose myself, what will I have left?" That was the thing about him. Hunger had shrunk his body, but it had not hardened his heart. On this particular evening, clouds gathered heavily above the city. The air felt tight, as if Lagos itself was holding its breath. By 7 p.m., rain crashed down without warning. People scattered. Shop owners dragged tarpaulins over goods. Drivers honked impatiently as visibility dropped. Chinedu had managed to buy a small loaf of bread and a sachet of pure water with the 600 Nigerian nairas he earned that day. He ran under the bridge for cover, pressing the bread to his chest to protect it from the rain. That was when he saw her. An elderly woman, hunched and trembling, sat near one of the pillars. Her wrapper was soaked. Her eyes were closed as rainwater trickled down her wrinkled face. He hesitated only a second. He walked over and crouched beside her. "Mama, are you okay?" She opened her eyes slowly. "My son. I just needed small place to rest." Without thinking, he tore the bread in half and handed it to her. "It's all I have," he said softly. Her hand shook as she received it. "God bless you, my child." He shrugged as if it were nothing. But he felt the familiar tightening in his stomach. Half a loaf would not silence hunger for long. Still, he sat with her until the rain softened. It was not the first time he had done something like that. A few weeks ago, he had given his slippers to a younger boy whose feet were bleeding. Another time, He shared his earnings with a pregnant woman who said she hadn't eaten all day. Say once accused him of being foolish. You think anybody will remember you? Chinedu had looked toward the distant lights of Victoria Island. God remembers. The rain grew heavier again, drumming against the concrete. Thunder cracked across the sky. Then, through the curtain of water, he noticed something unusual. Across the road, near a poorly lit stretch by the expressway, a sleek black car stood crookedly, its hazard lights blinking weakly. One of its doors was slightly open. At first, he ignored it. Cars broke down all the time. But then he saw a figure lying on the wet ground beside it. His heart thudded. The man was dressed too well to belong to the streets. Even in the rain, Chinedu could see the crisp white shirt, the polished shoes now soaked in muddy water. People were passing. Umbrellas up. Heads down. No one stopped. Maybe he's drunk, someone muttered while hurrying past. Leave him. Lagos problem no finish, another said. Chinedu stood frozen. He looked at the remaining half of his bread in his hand. He looked at the elderly woman, who was now slowly chewing. He looked at the unconscious man. Something inside him refused to look away. He placed the bread beside the woman. Mama, help me keep this. She blinked at him. Where are you going? There's someone there. Before fear could convince him otherwise, he dashed into the rain. Cars splashed water as they sped past. He dodged between them, his heart pounding in his ears. When he reached the man, he knelt beside him. Sir? Sir, he called, shaking his shoulder gently. No response. The man's face was bruised. There was a cut near his eyebrow. Blood mixed with rainwater. Chinedu swallowed hard. He had seen fights before. He knew what a beaten person looked like. He glanced around nervously. The car door was open. The interior light flickered faintly. The front windshield had a crack. Sir, please wake up, he whispered urgently. The man groaned faintly. Relief washed over him, but it was thin and fragile. Can you hear me? The man's lips moved slightly, but no words came out. Rain soaked through Chinedu's threadbare shirt. He felt small. Helpless. But walking away was not an option his heart understood. He searched the man's pockets carefully, not to steal, but to find a clue. His fingers brushed against a damp leather wallet. Inside, there was no cash. But there was something else. A laminated ID card. He pulled it closer to the faint car light, squinting through the rain. The name on it made his breath catch. Oluwatobi Adebayo. Below it was a photo matching the unconscious man. And beneath the name was a seal, official, bold, unmistakable. Chinedu's hands trembled. He knew that name. Everyone in Lagos knew that name. The governor of Lagos State was Adebayo. His heart began to race, louder than the thunder above. He looked from the car to the injured young man. Rain poured relentlessly around them. For a split second, fear whispered, "Drop it. Run. This is not your business." But Chinedu had already made his choice the moment he crossed the road. He slipped the ID back into the wallet carefully. "Don't worry," he said softly, as if the stranger could hear him through unconsciousness and rain. "I won't leave you." Under the roaring Third Mainland Bridge, with hunger clawing at his stomach and uncertainty tightening around his chest, a homeless boy decided that someone else's life mattered more than his own comfort. And Lagos, though it did not know it yet, was about to remember his name. Rain lashed against Chinedu's face as he tried to lift the unconscious young man. Up close, the stranger looked even more fragile than before. His breathing was shallow, uneven, like a candle fighting wind. "Sir, please," Chinedu muttered, slipping one arm under the man's shoulders. The weight shocked him. The young man was taller, broader, and dressed in clothes that probably cost more than anything Chinedu had ever owned. Car horns blared angrily as vehicles sped past. No one slowed down. Chinedu dragged him inch by inch toward the side of the road. His slippers nearly slipped off in the muddy water. His thin arms trembled. "Help me," he shouted once, but the rain swallowed his voice. A Keek rider slowed briefly, stared, then sped away. "God Abig," Chinedu whispered under his breath. He couldn't leave the man there. Not with the rain pouring. Not with whatever had happened clearly violent. There was only one place he could think of Mama Sade's roadside clinic, 3 streets away from the bridge. It wasn't much. A small building with faded green paint and a flickering fluorescent bulb outside. But Mama Sade had stitched wounds for street boys before. She didn't ask too many questions, as long as someone paid. Chinedu tightened his grip and began the slow journey. He dragged the man across puddles and broken asphalt, stopping every few steps to catch his breath. "Stay with me," he pleaded softly. "Don't die." The word scared him as soon as he said them. Die? No. Not on his watch. By the time he reached the clinic, his clothes clung to his body and his muscles burned. He kicked the metal door with his heel. "Open. Please." After a moment, the door creaked open. A middle-aged nurse in a worn uniform peered out. "Who is disturbing at this hour?" "Please, Ma. He's dying." She frowned but stepped aside as Chinedu dragged the young man in. The clinic smelled of antiseptic and damp walls. 2 rusty beds stood against opposite sides. A small generator hummed faintly. Mama Sade herself emerged from behind a curtain, tying her headscarf. "What is this?" "I found him by the road," Chinedu said breathlessly. "He was beaten." Mama Sade bent down, examining the bruises. She pressed 2 fingers against the young man's neck. "He still has pulse," she said calmly. "But he has lost blood." "Please help him," Chinedu begged. The nurse crossed her arms. "Who will pay?" The question hit him like a slap. I will." Mama Sade raised an eyebrow. "You?" Chinedu nodded quickly and reached into the small nylon pouch tied around his waist. He emptied the crumpled notes and coins onto a metal tray. 2,350 Nigerian nairas. All his savings. Weeks of lifting heavy loads under the sun. Weeks of skipping meals. Mama Sade counted silently. She sighed. "It's not enough." Chinedu's heart dropped. "Please. We need injections. Drips. Medicine." "Do you think this is free?" the nurse snapped. Tears mixed with rainwater on his face. "Take it. I'll bring the rest later." Mama Sade shook her head. "No credit." Desperation clawed at his chest. His eyes darted around the small clinic as if money might magically appear. Then his hand slowly moved to his neck. The silver chain. It was thin and simple. Not expensive. But it was the last thing his mother had given him before she left for the market the morning she died. He remembered her fastening it gently. "My lion," she had said, smiling. "So you'll remember you're stronger than you think." His fingers trembled as he unclasped it. He stared at it for a moment. Then he placed it beside the money. "Please," he whispered. "Save him." The room fell silent. Even the nurse's expression softened slightly. Mama Sade studied the boy's face. There was no calculation there. No greed. Just raw desperation to keep a stranger alive. She exhaled slowly. Put him on the bed. Relief flooded Chinedu so suddenly his knees nearly buckled. The nurse moved quickly now, cleaning wounds, inserting a drip. Mama Sade stitched the cut above the young man's eyebrow with steady hands. Chinedu stood in the corner, soaked and shivering, watching every movement. "Will he live?" he asked quietly. "If God agrees, Mama Sade replied. Minutes felt like hours. At some point, exhaustion pulled Chinedu down onto the cold floor beside the bed. He didn't realize he had dozed off until the sound of engines shattered the quiet night. Not one engine. Many. Deep. Powerful. The clinic windows glowed as bright headlights flooded the compound. Doors slammed. Voices, sharp, commanding. The nurse froze. What is happening? Mama Sade stepped toward the door cautiously. Before she could reach it, it swung open. Men in black suits flooded inside. Rain dripped from their shoulders. 2 carried walkie-talkies. 1 had an earpiece. Their eyes scanned the room instantly. Then one of them saw the young man on the bed. "Sir," he shouted. The others rushed forward. Chinedu scrambled to his feet, heart pounding wildly. Another man turned sharply toward him. "Who brought him here?" Chinedu's throat went dry. I did." The man's eyes narrowed. "How do you know him?" "I don't," Chinedu whispered. More footsteps approached. Slower this time. The room seemed to hold its breath as a tall figure entered. Even without introduction, his presence filled the clinic. Authority clung to him like a second skin. Governor Adebayo. Chinedu had only seen him on billboards and television screens mounted in electronics shops. In person, he looked even more formidable. His eyes fell on the unconscious young man. For a split second, something raw, fear, flashed across his face. "Toby," he said quietly, stepping closer. The suited men stepped aside respectfully. Mama Sade spoke carefully. "He has lost blood, but we stabilized him." The governor nodded once. His gaze shifted slowly until it landed on Chinedu. The boy felt suddenly very aware of his torn shirt. His bare, muddy feet. The absence of the silver chain around his neck. "You," the governor said evenly. "You brought him here." Chinedu swallowed. "Yes, sir." "Why?" The question confused him. He was hurt. The governor studied him for a long moment. One of the security men spoke softly. "Sir, we found the car. It was an attack." Silence thickened. The governor looked back at Chinedu. "Do you know who he is?" Chinedu shook his head quickly, though his heart was racing with the truth he had read on the ID card. The governor's voice lowered. "He is my son." The word seemed to echo against the clinic walls. Chinedu's knees felt weak again. Fear crept up his spine. Had he done something wrong? Would they accuse him? One security man stepped closer, studying the boy suspiciously. "Where did you find him?" "By the road," Chinedu answered quickly. "Near the bridge." The governor's eye softened slightly. "And you stayed?" "Yes, sir." The room was silent except for the steady drip of fluid. For the first time since the convoy arrived, the governor's posture shifted. The iron edge in his shoulders eased. He walked toward Chinedu slowly. Up close, the governor could see the boy's trembling hands. The exhaustion. The sincerity. "You saved my son's life," he said quietly. Chinedu didn't know what to say. He just stared at the floor. The governor removed his suit jacket and, without ceremony, draped it over the boy's shoulders. It was warm. Heavy. Chinedu looked up, startled. "From today," the governor said, his voice steady but filled with something deeper than authority, "you will not sleep under any bridge again." The word settled into Chinedu's heart like something fragile and unbelievable. For the first time since the accident that shattered his world, hope felt real. The rain had softened to a drizzle by the time the ambulance arrived to transfer Oluwatobi Adebayo to a private hospital on the island. The convoy moved with urgency, red and blue lights slicing through the wet Lagos night. Chinedu sat quietly in the back seat of one of the SUVs, wrapped in the governor's suit jacket, unsure if he was dreaming. He had never been inside a car like this before. The seats were soft, the air smelled clean, and the doors closed with a heavy, expensive certainty. A security officer sat beside him, watching him with guarded curiosity. "You live under that bridge?" the officer asked finally. "Yes, sir." "For how long?" Chinedu hesitated. "Almost 1 year." The officer studied him as if trying to understand how someone so young could survive that long alone. They arrived at St. Catherine's Specialist Hospital, a tall, brightly lit building in Victoria Island. Nurses rushed out as soon as the convoy stopped. Toby was wheeled inside immediately. The governor followed closely. Chinedu lingered near the entrance, suddenly unsure of where he belonged. A woman in an elegant navy dress hurried down the hospital corridor. Her face was pale with fear. "Adebayo," she called. "Where is he?" The governor caught her hands. "He's alive." Tears flooded her eyes instantly. "Toby." She noticed Chinedu standing behind them. Her gaze moved from his bare feet to the oversized suit jacket around his shoulders. "Who is this boy?" she asked softly. The governor looked at Chinedu for a moment before answering. "The reason our son is breathing." The woman's eyes widened. She walked toward him slowly. "You found him?" Chinedu nodded. "Yes, Ma." She pulled him into a tight embrace without hesitation. He stiffened at first, surprised by the warmth of it. It had been so long since anyone hugged him like that. "Thank you," she whispered against his damp hair. Hours passed in the waiting area. Doctors moved in and out of the operating theater. The governor made quiet phone calls. Security personnel whispered among themselves. Chinedu sat alone in a corner chair, watching everything silently. He felt invisible and exposed at the same time. Finally, a doctor emerged. "Governor, your son is stable. He lost blood, but there's no internal organ damage. He'll regain consciousness soon." Relief swept through the room like fresh air. The governor closed his eyes briefly. His wife covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks again. Chinedu smiled faintly, tension leaving his small body. The governor turned to him. "Come." They walked to a quieter hallway. "What is your name?" the governor asked gently. "Chinedu Okafor, sir." "Do you have family?" Chinedu hesitated. "Not really." The governor listened as the boy explained about the accident. The uncle. The bridge. Balagan Market. He spoke without drama, simply stating facts as if they were weather reports. The governor's jaw tightened slightly. "You are 13. "Yes, sir." "And you gave everything you had to save my son." Chinedu looked confused by the weight in the man's voice. He needed help. The governor studied him carefully. In politics, he had learned to read people quickly. Most adults approached him with agendas hidden behind smiles. But this boy stood before him with nothing but honesty in his eyes. "You saw who attacked him." Chinedu's mind flashed back to the scene, shadows moving quickly, a struggle, a voice shouting harshly before he had hidden behind a pillar. He had not understood everything then, but pieces lingered. "I didn't see their faces clearly," he said slowly. "But I heard one of them say something." "What?" He said, "Make it look like robbery." The message must reach his father. The governor's expression darkened instantly. "Are you certain?" "Yes, sir." Before the governor could respond, a nurse approached. "He's awake." They entered Toby's hospital room quietly. The young man lay pale against white sheets, and fur attached to his arm. His eyes fluttered open as his father stepped closer. "Dad!" The governor gripped his hand. "You frightened us." Toby managed a weak smile. His gaze shifted and landed on Chinedu. Confusion flickered across his face. "Who?" The governor stepped aside. "This is Chinedu. He found you." Toby studied him carefully. Then memory seemed to click. The rain. Chinedu nodded. You were on the ground. Toby's voice was hoarse. They took my wallet. My phone. You're safe now, his mother said gently. Toby kept looking at Chinedu. Why didn't you leave? The question was simple but heavy. Chinedu shrugged lightly. You were breathing. Toby let out a faint laugh despite the pain. You're crazy. Maybe, Chinedu replied softly. The room relaxed slightly. But beneath the relief, tension simmered. The governor stepped out briefly and spoke in hushed tones with his chief security officer. This wasn't random, he said firmly. Find out who planned it. Yes, sir. Inside the room, Toby motioned for Chinedu to come closer. You live around there? Yes. Under the bridge? Chinedu nodded again. Toby stared at him in disbelief. I snuck out because I wanted to see how regular people live. I didn't even last one night. Chinedu smiled faintly. It's not easy. Toby looked thoughtful. You saved me. I don't even know how to thank you. You don't need to, Chinedu replied. The door opened again. The governor returned, his expression composed but resolute. Chinedu, he said calmly, I meant what I said earlier. The boy looked up. You will not return to that bridge. Chinedu's heart skipped. You will come with us to the government house. Silence filled the room. Even Toby blinked in surprise. Dad! The governor raised a hand gently. This boy showed courage most adults lack. He gave up everything he had for a stranger. I will not allow him to return to the streets. Chinedu felt a strange mixture of hope and fear rising inside him. The government house? That was a place he had only seen on television during official events. Sir, he began carefully, I don't want to cause trouble. You won't, the governor replied firmly. Toby smiled weakly from the bed. Looks like you're stuck with us. Chinedu looked down at his bare feet, unsure how to step into a world so far from the bridge. That night, as dawn began to creep over Lagos, the decision was made. A homeless boy who once slept on cardboard beneath concrete pillars was about to cross a different kind of bridge, one that would carry him into a life he had never dared to imagine. The gates of the Lagos State Government House opened slowly, revealing manicured lawns, tall palm trees, and a wide driveway that curved toward a grand white building glowing under early morning light. Chinedu sat quietly in the back seat of the SUV, his small fingers gripping the edge of the governor's jacket still wrapped around him. He had passed this place once before on a Danfo bus, staring through dusty windows at the high fences and uniformed guards. It had looked like another world. Now the gates were opening for him. As the car rolled inside, security officers saluted. Staff members moved about briskly, their shoes clicking on polished tiles. Everything looked organized, deliberate, controlled. Nothing like the unpredictable rhythm under the bridge. When the vehicle stopped, the governor stepped out first. He turned and offered his hand to Chinedu. Come. Chinedu hesitated for only a second before placing his small hand in the governor's firm grip. Inside, the floors gleamed like mirrors. Chandeliers hung above. Air conditioning cooled the air so sharply that Chinedu shivered. A housekeeper approached carefully. So, prepare a guest room, the governor said. And get him fresh clothes. Yes, sir. Chinedu followed silently, aware of curious glances from staff members. Some smiled politely. Others whispered behind discreet hands. He was led into a spacious bedroom with cream-colored walls, a neatly made bed, and a bathroom larger than the one-room apartment he once shared with his parents. You can bathe, the housekeeper said gently. I'll leave clothes here. When she left, Chinedu stood alone in the center of the room. For a moment, he simply listened to the silence. No traffic roaring overhead. No distant shouting. No mosquitoes whining around his ears. He walked into the bathroom and turned the shower knob cautiously. Warm water poured out instantly. He froze. He had not felt warm water in nearly a year. Slowly, he stepped under it. Dirt swirled down the drain. The tension in his muscles eased little by little. Tears mixed with the water, though he didn't fully understand why he was crying. After dressing in clean shorts and a plain white shirt left for him, he stared at his reflection in the mirror. He barely recognized himself. A knock came at the door. "Breakfast is ready," a staff member announced. He walked into a large dining hall where the governor and his wife sat at the head of a long table. Toby's chair was empty. "Good morning," the governor's wife said warmly. "Did you sleep?" Chinedu nodded. "Yes, Ma." "Sit," the governor instructed. Plates of food were placed before him: eggs, bread, fruit, juice. He hesitated, unsure of which to touch first. "Eat," the governor's wife encouraged gently. He picked up a fork awkwardly. He wasn't used to cutlery, but he tried carefully. The governor watched him quietly. "From today, you will return to school." Chinedu's fork paused mid-air. "School?" "Yes. Education first. Everything else after." He swallowed slowly. "Thank you, sir." Later that afternoon, Toby returned from the hospital under tight security. Though still weak, he insisted on walking into the house himself. When he saw Chinedu in clean clothes, he grinned. "You clean up well." Chinedu smiled shyly. "You too." They sat in the garden later, sunlight filtering through palm leaves. "I owe you," Toby said quietly. "You don't," Chinedu replied. Toby leaned back. "You know what's funny? I left home angry. I told my dad I wanted to see real Lagos. I didn't expect real Lagos to nearly kill me." Chinedu was silent. "They attacked fast," Toby continued. "Two men. One had a scar on his neck. The other kept saying something about sending a message." Chinedu's eye sharpened slightly. "The one with the scar, did he talk rough?" "Yes." Chinedu nodded slowly. "I remember his voice." Before they could say more, a staff member approached hurriedly. "Sir, the governor requests your presence." Inside his office, the governor stood behind a wide mahogany desk. His expression was serious. "There's something you must understand," he said to Chinedu. "My son's attack was not random." Chinedu listened carefully. Political rivals are capable of many things. If what you heard is true, then this was meant to embarrass me publicly. "I didn't see their faces clearly," Chinedu said quietly. "But I remember the scar. And the way he said, the message must reach his father." The governor exchanged a glance with his security chief. "That detail matters," the chief said. The governor nodded. "But speaking about this may place you in danger." Chinedu's stomach tightened. Danger was not new to him, but this felt different. Bigger. "I'm not afraid," he said softly. The governor studied him for a long moment. "You should be. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it." Outside the office, whispers were already spreading. News outlets had reported the attempted attack on the governor's son. Rumors flew across Lagos. Within days, political opponents began questioning the governor's sudden decision to bring a street boy into the government house. "It's sympathy strategy," one rival claimed on television. "He's using the boy for public image," another said. Chinedu overheard two staff members murmuring in a hallway. "Can he even fit in here? Street children carry trouble." The word stung, though he pretended not to hear. That night, he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the ceiling. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Toby entered without waiting. "You okay?" Chinedu nodded faintly. "They're talking, right?" Toby asked. Chinedu looked down. Maybe I don't belong here. Toby frowned. When I was lying in that rain, nobody else stopped. Not the rich. Not the educated. You did. If anyone belongs here, it's you. Chinedu swallowed hard. What if I cause problems for your father? Toby shrugged. He's a politician. Problems are part of his breakfast. They both laughed softly. But beyond the laughter, tension grew. Investigators traced clues from the damaged car. Security footage from nearby cameras revealed partial images. The scar on the attacker's neck matched a known associate of a political figure recently dismissed from a major contract. One evening, the governor called Chinedu into his office again. "We may need you to identify a voice," he said carefully. Chinedu's heart pounded. "You will be protected," the governor assured him. Chinedu thought of the bridge. The rain. The decision to cross the road. He had not chosen comfort that night. He had chosen what was right. "I will help," he said firmly. As investigations intensified, the once quiet government house became a place of strategy meetings and guarded conversations. Chinedu realized that his small act of kindness had pulled him into a storm far larger than he ever imagined. But he did not regret it. The room was dim, lit only by a desk lamp and the faint glow from a recording device placed at the center of a polished table. Chinedu sat upright in a high-backed chair that felt too large for him. Across from him, the governor's security chief adjusted a pair of headphones. Two plainclothes officers stood by the door. "We'll play several voice recordings," the chief said calmly. "Take your time. If you recognize anything, tell us." Chinedu nodded, though his palms were damp. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. The first recording began, a rough male voice arguing loudly over a phone call. Chinedu shook his head. Not him. The second played. This one sounded younger, nervous. "No," he said again. The third recording crackled through the speakers. The voice was deeper. Confident. Slightly raspy. Chinedu's fingers tightened around the edge of the chair. "Make it look like robbery. The message must reach his father." The words echoed exactly as they had that night in the rain. His breath caught. "That's him," Chinedu said immediately. "That's the one." The security chief leaned forward. "You're certain?" "Yes, sir." The chief removed the headphones slowly and exchanged a look with the officers. "Thank you, Chinedu," he said. "That helps more than you know." Within hours, arrests were made. The man with the scar on his neck, identified as Colonel Bamadil, a known political enforcer, was taken into custody alongside two accomplices. News of the breakthrough spread quickly across Lagos. By morning, television stations were reporting that the attack on Oluwatobi Adebayo had been a calculated attempt to destabilize the governor's administration. Inside the government house, tension slowly began to ease. The governor called Chinedu into his office once more. This time, there was no heavy silence, no guarded tone. "You were brave," he said simply. Chinedu stood quietly, unsure how to respond to praise. "You understand what you've done," the governor continued. "Your testimony didn't just protect my son. It exposed people who would have caused chaos in this state." Chinedu shifted slightly. "I only said what I heard." The governor smiled faintly. Integrity often sounds simple. Later that afternoon, Toby found Chinedu in the garden again. "So, hero," Toby teased lightly, lowering himself onto a bench. "You just helped solve a political scandal." Chinedu frowned. "I didn't want trouble." "You didn't create it," Toby replied. "You ended it." They sat quietly for a moment, watching gardeners trim hedges in neat lines. "Do you miss it?" Toby asked suddenly. "Miss what?" "The bridge." Chinedu thought carefully. "I miss the boys." "Say." "The others." Toby nodded slowly. We can't pretend they don't exist. Those words lingered long after the conversation ended. Weeks passed. Chinedu began private lessons with tutors arranged by the governor. Mathematics returned slowly to him. English reading felt easier than before. For the first time since his parents died, his future seemed like something solid instead of fog. But he never forgot where he came from. One evening, while watching news coverage about youth homelessness in Nigeria, the governor turned down the volume and looked at his son and Chinedu seated nearby. "This country has too many children sleeping under bridges," he said quietly. Chinedu looked at the floor. He could still feel the cold concrete in his bones. "I was one of them," he said softly. The governor nodded. "Yes. And you should never have been." 2 months after the arrests, a state event was organized at Tafawa Balewa Square. Dignitaries, journalists, community leaders, and citizens filled rows of seats beneath a large canopy. Cameras flashed. Microphones were tested. Chinedu stood backstage in a neatly pressed navy outfit, his heart pounding harder than it had during the voice identification. "You nervous?" Toby asked with a grin. "A little. You faced criminals. You can face microphones." When the governor stepped onto the stage, applause rolled across the square. He spoke about resilience, about leadership, about responsibility. Then his tone shifted. "A few months ago," he began, "my son was left unconscious in the rain. Many passed him by. But one boy stopped." A large screen behind the stage displayed a photograph of Chinedu, not the old image from under the bridge, but a recent one, standing tall. "He had nothing," the governor continued. "Yet he gave everything. Not because he knew who my son was, but because it was right." Chinedu felt his throat tighten. "In his honor, we are launching the Chinedu Hope Initiative, a foundation dedicated to rehabilitating and educating homeless children across Nigeria." Applause thundered. The governor extended his hand toward Chinedu. "Come." Chinedu stepped forward slowly. "Today," the governor said into the microphone, "I also make something personal official. I am adopting Chinedu Okafor as my son." The crowd erupted again. Chinedu blinked rapidly, overwhelmed by the sound. The governor placed a hand on his shoulder. "From under a bridge to standing before a state, this is what compassion can do." Later that week, without cameras or crowds, Chinedu asked for one thing. "I want to go back," he told the governor. "To the bridge?" "Yes, sir." Security insisted on escorting him discreetly. When the SUV stopped near the familiar concrete pillars of the Third Mainland Bridge, memories rushed back like the lagoon breeze. He stepped out slowly. The noise of traffic roared above. Say spotted him first. "Chinedu." The other boys gathered quickly, staring at his clean clothes, the security vehicles parked nearby. "You don't disappear, oh," Say said, half joking, half amazed. Chinedu smiled. "I didn't disappear." He handed Say a small envelope. Inside was information about a temporary shelter program already arranged through the new foundation. "You can leave this place," Chinedu said gently. "All of you." They stared at him in disbelief. "Is it real?" one younger boy asked. "Yes." Chinedu looked up at the massive bridge overhead. For so long, it had felt like a ceiling trapping him beneath it. Now it looked different, just concrete and steel. No longer a cage. "I won't forget you," he said quietly. As he walked back toward the waiting vehicle, he didn't feel like a different person. He felt like the same boy who crossed a rainy road because someone needed help. Only now, he understood something powerful. Kindness does not require wealth. It creates it.